Rev up your engines!
Blacksmith says, hey, I wonder when Scotty's app's going to be available. And then JB says, poor old boy, that's a joke. No, it is not a joke. It is very serious. Working on an app, and now it's going to take a while to get it up because it's not going to be a crappy app. I'm not talking about small-time guys. I'm talking about people who know what they're doing. Sign up for it now, and then when it's up, you'll get the information on it. But we don't want to release something that's terrible, that is garbage, like a lot of apps that I've seen have been. I've even been involved with some apps that were absolute garbage. And this is not going to be. It's going to be a very good app. It's not a joke. Have patience. You have to wait for good things. Better to wait for good things than to get crap now. That's what I say. QRM says, Scotty, how do you think the complexities of even basic cars today are going to affect the average person to be able to afford to have cars down the road? Yeah, that's a big problem, you know, because as they age, these complex cars, when they break, a lot of people aren't going to be able to fix them. So, like, today, people love having a 67 Mustang Fastback, right? Even though the thing is, what, 53 years old, right? You're not going to get cars built today driving them 53 years from now. I can guarantee you that. Who knows? Maybe we'll have electric cars there. I have no idea what's going to happen 50 years now. But yeah, the complexity, they're a lot harder to keep them over a longer period of time because of all the technology, especially like gasoline, direct injection, turbocharged small engines. Stuff's going to wear out, cost a lot of money to fix, and it's going to be a much more expensive endeavor than it was in the past. Mr. Poppy said, hey, Scotty, what does the new Ford Bronco need to do to be successful? Well, obvious. It needs people to buy it. They're building a big one and a small one, but they said the small one's going to come out before the big one. I guess it's easier to make the small one, then they're going to make the big one come out later. Who knows, you know? People like the old Bronco, and if it's got things that people want, they would want power, and they would want, in a small one, a little bit better gas mileage, probably than the original ones, which are tremendous gas hogs. Still SUV-ish, biggish type thing, even a small one. The gas mileage is going to be kind of the killer there. If it is decent, they'll probably sell a bunch. If it's a complete gas hog, well, then they're only going to get the guy who want big Broncos and don't care about gas mileage. Usman Hyder says, Scotty, can you take the thermostat out of a Daihatsu 850cc engine? It's too hot here in Pakistan. Thermostats are to make a vehicle run at the correct temperature as soon as possible. They stay shut. The hot water stays in the engine until it gets hot enough. Thermostat opens, goes in the radiator, and it keeps it at that temperature. If it gets too cool, it'll shut down again, so the temperature of the engine always stays the same. Because an engine has to run at a certain temperature. But if you're in Pakistan and it's hot all the time, let's say you take the thermostat out. If it runs in the middle, and you take the thermostat out and it still runs in the middle, it's not going to hurt anything. But if it runs lower, they're not made to run lower. They have to run at a certain optimal temperature. If engines run too cool, they can actually ruin the bearings inside the engine. A lot of people don't know that, but that's truth, and I've been explained by very good engineers that I know why, so it is true. It can damage the engine running too cool, but if you're in a hot place and even taking a thermostat out, it still stays in the middle. Yeah, you can do that. It won't hurt anything. Rusty Dice says, Mazda's very advanced technology. What's your thought on will they hold up over time? So likely get through a lot of oil. Okay, when they started to do them, no, they didn't hold up. And one of the main reasons was they had a deal going with Ford. Ford and Mazda's always have deals going on. And they were using a lot of these Ford variable valve timing cam assemblies. And they had problems with them. They also had problems with the cam phasers on the Ford V8 engines. They weren't built that well. So the early Skyactiv engines had engine problems. Now the new ones have more of a relationship with Mazda and Toyota, and they are better made. That said, you got to see how they last. I got a customer with a 2-year-old one. He's happy with it, and he hasn't had any problems yet. But, you know, you want to see what happens when they get 100-something thousand miles. And if it's a proven technology, yeah. Now, I do have to say, Toyota is now using some of this Mazda engine technology. They traded Toyota engine technology for Toyota electrical knowledge so that they can make electric cars, because everybody's planning on making electric cars. So, hey, we'll see. So far, so good, but it's only been a couple of years, really. So I'd wait on that one to see what's happened 5 or 6 years down the line. Al Ramos says, 95 Dodge Caravan. Any thoughts? $1,000. Okay, the Caravans are one of the worst vans ever made in the history of mankind. But $1,000, if it runs and it shifts okay, that's nothing for a vehicle. And if it lasts you 6 months, that's okay. And if you say you drive it and it seems to go pretty good and you want a van you can use on weekend, but don't buy it and think you can move your kids around driving 20,000 miles a year. It'll just bankrupt you. Transmissions are horrible in those things. Carvalho says, 2012 Scion TC, is it worth taking a look at? Yeah, those are great vehicles. I got customers with them. They absolutely love them. As I always warn people, when you're looking at used cars. Don't trust the people that are selling them. Do not trust them. You want a mechanic to check it out. I do it all the time for people, checking out used cars. And I can find anything that's wrong with them within an hour because the modern scan computers do everything. Then while they're running their diagnosis, I look all around the car, measure stuff, look at stuff, smell stuff, look for leaks. Have a mechanic check it out. If he says it's good, they can be great cars. I've seen those things with 250,000 miles and they're still running strong. JC's R3000 says, what are your thoughts on a modern Dodge Challenger with a Hemi engine? They are screaming cars. They are super, super fast. From my experience with customers who bought them, they don't hold up that well over time. You don't want to buy a used one. A heck beat out of them, and they're ready for the junkyard when somebody drives the heck out of them and then tries to sell them. They have very strong engines. They're great engines. If people don't beat them and blow them up, they have a lot of power, and they can last if you don't over-rev them. Whole vehicle, they generally have a tendency of wearing out because people beat the heck out of them. And some of it is because they're really being beaten, and the other is it's still a Dodge, and their quality control isn't all that hot. They're great engines, but the vehicle itself, it's still just a Dodge, mass-produced, poorly built car. They rattle as they age, and electronics go bad. They're not the greatest. But they're fast and fun if you got a lot of money. Buy a new one and have fun with it. Harrison Edgar said, my dad purchased an 04 Lexus RX330, 225 miles. Is that engine an interference engine? Well, yes, it is. That's one of the rare Toyota interference engines in a V6. The 300s weren't, the 330s were, but the 350s weren't. That's the only one. But I mean, it's not like they have problems. Just get a timing belt put on it. You don't have to think about it for a long, long time. I had a customer with one of those, and it had 350,000, and the belt had never been changed, and he's still driving it. It still hasn't broken. So, I mean, they're pretty well-made vehicles. But it is an interference engine. Only that 330, strangely enough. Nicholas Mazzola says, I got a Toyota Matrix 06 with 220,000 miles. Runs great. Should I get a new transmission or get mine refurbished? We said it runs great. Why would you? Now, if you mean the engine runs good, but the transmission's going out, you would want to get a rebuilt one from a quality place. Guys that rebuild them, I'd say they're iffy. They're iffy. You want it from a place that's in a factory that actually does it for a living, that really go through them, that specializes in Toyota stuff. That's the absolute best way to go. Or find a wrecked one, low mileage wrecked one, because, you know, you got 220,000. You can find a wrecked one even with 80,000. You can get used ones cheap enough. I'd go that route myself. John Wayne says, yeah, I thought he was dead. 1999 Subaru Legacy 3.5K or 2001 Subaru Outback 6K. Okay, here's the thing about Subarus. One's 21 and one's 19 years old. Do not buy any used Subaru with a 6-cylinder engines. They do not hold up. Look at the 4-cylinder ones, if at all possible, standard. But, I mean, if you have to, get an automatic. Take it to a guy like me to check it out, a good mechanic, because he's going to test the head gaskets. The 4-cylinders can have head gasket problems, too. If you baby them, not like the 6s, but they still have problems. You'd want him to check all that stuff. And if he says it's okay and you get one cheap, go ahead. But don't even think about getting the 6-cylinder engine ones, because those were horrible engines as they aged. They had all kinds of problems. They just were not well made. They made them bigger for more power, and they had many more problems. James A. Boy says, my car drives to the left on its own. I've had the wheels balanced and new tires. What could be wrong? Okay, well, you're not going to very good guys balancing and doing stuff. They should also check the alignment. Whenever a car pulls to one side, that means the alignment is off to some extent. First, you have to realize that roads are all graded for rain. If the roads weren't graded when it rained, they'd puddle up. So they're graded to drain the rain. All cars generally will pull a little bit to the side that the drain of the road is. So that you don't worry about. But if yours is pulling, go to a good alignment shop. And I know it's very hard to find good alignment shops because a lot of the guys do alignments, but they're not really good alignment shops. They sell tires and other stuff, and they say they do alignments, but the guys working there really aren't that good at what they're doing. It's hard to find them, I admit. It's hard to find a good alignment shop. I'm having problems here in Houston now because I used to use Cotton Brothers, and they stopped doing cars. They're only doing big 18-wheelers because they can make a lot more money doing it, and they've always done that. And they don't want to mess with little bitty cars making $60, $80, $90 each time when they're working on these big trucks. They're making thousands of dollars, so I can't blame them. But it's very hard to find a good alignment shop these days. It just is. But you need to find one. Airplane Guy 33 says speedometer isn't working in my 95 Camry LE sedan. Okay, it may be old, but it's not as old as you may think. That still has an electronic speedometer in it. So does my 94 Celica. Go to the transmission. There's a thing called the speed sensor. If you can't figure out where it is, go to a place like AutoZone. They can sell you the sensor cheaper than a dealer. They can also print you out a picture on their computer of exactly where it is. And if you want, open your hood there, they can point it and say, they're right there. That's what you need to replace. 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. Now, if it's the actual speedometer and the odometer and the dash, those cost a ton. In that case, you go to a junkyard, buy a used dash for 50 bucks, put that in. But normally it's the speed sensor because that's the only moving part. So that's generally what wears out in them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.